Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MB Om podcast. I'm so glad that you've decided to join me for today's episode of the show. We have a super awesome guest for the podcast today. But before we dive into that, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Ceteris. Tax season is here, and as a yoga entrepreneur dealing with your finances, accounting and tax preparation can take you away from focusing on the rest of your business. Or if you're like me, it can make you want to pull your hair out. Doing your own books and taxes is an unnecessary risk, and you can save valuable time and money by outsourcing your accounting and tax preparation. Ceteris specializes in accounting and tax preparation for yoga businesses. This is a complete done-for-you solution with no work on your end. You'll have access to your financials online, including a mobile app. You get the information you need to make better business decisions with their secure cloud-based platform. And they combine people and technology so you always have someone to talk to when you need to. On top of that, they manage everything while giving you full access to your financial data and benchmark reporting through their platform, Ceteris Edge, which is built on top of QuickBooks Online and integrates with MindBody Online. To learn more about Ceteris' fitness, business, accounting, and benchmark reporting solution, please visit www.ceteris.com/MBOM. That's CETERUS.com/MBOM. If you sign up through MBOM, you'll get 50% off your first 2 months. Thank you so much to Ceteris for sponsoring the show, as well as for giving that amazing discount to listeners. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Fave Yogis. Here's a business tool that's really going to change the lives of yoga teachers. Do you teach yoga? Then this app is for you. The Fave Yogis app puts control and freedom in your hands. You can update your class schedule, offer your own classes anywhere, anytime, and get paid all from your phone. No more updating your schedule in multiple places for students to maybe stumble across it. Students simply open Fave Yogis and your schedule will be there. With Fave Yogis, you can receive donations or tips from students, send students notifications about class updates, set prices and ticket availability, and auto send reminders to students. Just your yoga, teachers add classes, students add teachers, students and teachers stay connected. Head on over to your app store and search for the Fave Yogis app. It's FAVYOGIS. You can sign up for free, you can download for free, and you can use for free. When you sign up, use code MBOM and make sure that they know that I sent you. Now, quickly, before we dive into this episode of the podcast, I want to remind you that Kelly Smith from Yoga for You Online and myself are running a 4-series online workshop called Elevate Your Yoga Biz. It's designed for yoga teachers who want to grow and expand their current yoga businesses. We're offering 4 modules starting April 17th through until May 8th. All the sessions will be from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're talking about things like building your brand, designing and creating unique classes that fill, taking your business online and growing your online presence, as well as streamlining your yoga biz. The best part is that if you're interested in only one of those things, you can sign up for only one of them. When you head on over to the registration page, you'll be able to either choose one of the sessions, 2 of the sessions, 3 of the sessions, or all of the sessions. So you can sign up for that or find more at bit.ly.com/yoga-biz-workshop. Of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Now, today's special guest for the podcast is Jack Boken from Happy Jack Yoga. And I need to give a shout out to my girl Jenna from the Exploring Yogini, who messaged me a couple months back and was like, Amanda, you need to have Happy Jack on the podcast. So I emailed him, he said yes, and we had this really amazing conversation that I'm super excited to share with you. Not only is he a fellow Canadian, but he's also a world traveler. He offers retreats and trainings all over the world. And on this episode, we talk about so much different stuff: creating an authentic business, how to find what you're passionate about, how he's successfully grown his business, and so much more. So I'm really excited for this episode, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording it. So without further ado, here's Happy Jack. I'm very excited to be joined on the podcast today by Jack Boken from Happy Jack Yoga. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. And we connected through, our mutual friend, Jenna Johnson from the Exploring Yogini. And I know that she's been working with you guys and she did your training and stuff. And she was like, you have to get Happy Jack on the podcast. Like, he's amazing. So I'm really grateful that you've taken the time today to join me.
It's my absolute pleasure. I'm happy to have this conversation.
Yeah. And can you tell me where you're joining me from today?
Today, I am coming at you from Canada. So I'm up near, just a little bit north of Toronto. And for me, my yoga journey, I've been traveling around the world for years, had a backpack and a guitar and a one-way ticket to India. But now, after about 5 years of nonstop travel, I'm back home in my stomping grounds of Canada.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to dive into, all that travel and stuff. I'm curious, how does it feel to have a home base?
I love it. There was a time that I was craving, I love being on the road. I love the feeling of sleeping on airport benches and wherever I could find a place in India or Asia or wherever I was. And now I've seen so much of the world, over 30 plus countries or something, and teaching everywhere. It feels so good actually being close to family. I've just really recognized the importance of having that support, that foundation from here. And though still, we love to travel. So every month we're going somewhere warm and going to our favorite paradise locations around the world. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to hear that because my boyfriend and I are both nomadic right now. All of our work is entirely online. So we can, virtually live anywhere with Wi-Fi, which is pretty easy to do nowadays, which is absolutely incredible. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I think we're not quite ready to settle down somewhere, but I do feel that pull at times to, be back home. Like sometimes I'm like, I just want my bathtub and like my Mary's Organic and, the things I can't get in other places.
Well, I think the key is being authentic to yourself. Even when I went off traveling, there were a lot of people who thought I was crazy. They're like, why are you, you have this great job, you're living in Calgary, this big 6-figure salary and a company car and laptop and all this stuff, and why would you give that all up, backpack around and grow your beard and play guitar in the slums of India? But it's like, I think the key is really doing what you love. Mm-hmm. And that's always been my mission. That's what I've lived by, especially since I found yoga. And so for me, it was authentic to come back to home roots. Mm-hmm. And I love that you're doing what's true to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's sometimes harder said than done. I know that when my boyfriend and I were working corporate in Calgary as well, probably around the same time that you were living there. And we're just like, we can't do this anymore. And we quit our jobs and sold our stuff and went to South America. And there was a lot of people who were like, you make good money here and have good jobs. What on earth are you guys doing? And we're like, we just need to get out. We need to do something different. When we came home, we moved to Canmore and I got a job with Lululemon. Nice. And my brother actually called me. He's a couple of years younger than me. And he's like, are you okay? Is there something wrong? Because you could have a good job with an oil and gas company in Calgary. And instead you're kind of just throwing your life away living in Canmore, working at Lululemon. And I was like, oh man, you just don't get it.
Right. Well, here's the deal. Again, coming back to have to be true to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So for me, for so much of my life, I was seeking validation from my dad, and I love my dad. I studied engineering to make him proud. Then I got my MBA to make him proud. And then, working for John Deere, this big tractor company, to make him proud. And it wasn't my passion. Mm-hmm. And so when I left to go and teach yoga and travel in the world, he thought I was crazy, right? He's like old school. And even just a couple of years ago, I was back home splitting some firewood with him. And I'm like, Dad, what do you think? Things are actually turning out really well here. I'm having success teaching yoga. I'm traveling the world. Things are going great. And he's like, Jack, you don't have a home. You don't have a car. You don't have a wife and a family. And in the past, with those comments, I would have got defensive and reacted. But it really hit me. It's like, he just wants the best for me. Mm-hmm. And from his generation, he believes that a car and a house and a family is going to give me security. And so when I just recognize he's coming from a place of love, he wants the best. It's like at least then it allowed me to not react and not, just be able to still have that connection. And that was a huge lesson for me.
Yeah, it's super interesting when you can kind of recognize that somebody's bringing in their definition of success. You know, he wants you to be successful, and he thinks that means that you own a home and you have a car and you have a wife. And, you know, to you at that point, you're obviously defining it quite differently. And I think it's really interesting when we start diving into, you know, how we define success and what we define those things as.
Totally. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, me too. And so I want to, you know, tie your yoga into this because I know that the yoga practice is so influential to all of our decisions. When did you start practicing yoga?
I started practicing in 2010. It was actually, I had just recently gotten sober. So I was, you know, I was an alcoholic and kind of out of control with my life. And I just recently gotten sober, and my new default, my new crutch, you could say, was work. And my mom, she's like, Jack, you're so stressed out. You're so busy all the time. You should try yoga or meditation or something like that. And I was thinking, yoga, like, that's for girls, isn't it? You know, that was my thought. But anyways, I gave it a shot. And I mean, from that first class, like, it kicked my butt. It happened to be a hot yoga class at Calgary Hot Yoga. And I felt so good after. And of course, you know, as we all know, as yogis, first I noticed the physical benefits, and then eventually the mental benefits, and then just like connecting deeper on a spiritual level. But really, it was my mom who recommended it, 2010, I think, like March, and that was the beginning of the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's so amazing. At what point did you decide, I want to teach this? I want to share this with other people?
So about a year after that, I've just been practicing for about a year, and I decided to go to a teacher training. Like, it was a week long, a 7-day training in Hawaii with Baron Baptiste. And so at the time, I had no intention of teaching yoga. You know, I was just like, I love this practice. I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to go deeper into the practice. So I enrolled in this training, really a boot camp. And by the end of it, like, I had so many breakthroughs and so much transformation, and really the impact that my teacher had on me was so profound that I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what makes me feel alive. I mean, sitting in a cubicle designing tractors and going to visit customers who are driving excavators, it's just not my passion. It's passion for some people, but just not for me. Mm-hmm. And so really from that first teacher training, I guess February 2011, I started teaching from them.
Amazing. And so
yeah,
did you dive into teaching like right after you got that first training?
I totally did. I was so convinced. I mean, I came home from that training. I called up my parents and I'm like, listen, I just did this teacher training. It was amazing. I said, I'm moving back home to Ontario. I'm going to quit John Deere, and actually I'm going to go travel the world and teach yoga and do what I love. And my parents are like, Jack, you're crazy. You know, like you've got this great job, this great life out there. But they did have some good points. They said, you know, you're still paying off some student loans. I still had some student loans left over from engineering, you know, so they said, pay that off while you got a good salary. I was actually going through a divorce at the time. So they said, finalize the divorce, get that all complete. I was just finishing up my MBA. So they said, finish your MBA. And so it took me about a year and a half to get those things tied up, those loose ends. Mm-hmm. But I knew, I mean, the whole time I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Actually, though, to be honest, as soon as I finished the training, though, I thought what I wanted to do was open a yoga studio. Mm-hmm. So it's literally the day I got home, for about a month, I obsessed about it. And I wrote a 55-page business plan on opening a yoga studio, you know, really leveraging the experience I had from the corporate world. And by the end of the year and a half, though, as I got deeper into this and really got clarity on my vision, I realized I wanted to see the world. So not just be stuck in one spot. Yeah. So anyways, I've got that business plan. I'm happy to share it. All of our students, anybody who's interested, who's listening, send me an email. Happy to share that with you, just because there are so many people out there who are now creating amazing studios and communities. It just wasn't my vision at the time. So I decided I'm going to travel the world. I got a one-way ticket to India, and and just really found myself, I would say.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think you touched on, a couple of important things there, I think, but one thing that kind of stands out to me is this idea of wanting to own this yoga studio and then getting clarity on what you actually wanted your life to look like. What kind of went into that process, or how did you kind of figure out like, I actually don't want to be tied to one place with a brick and mortar business. I want to travel.
Yeah, I guess it was, I mean, initially, probably coming from the corporate mindset, I was like, how can okay, well, if I'm going to leave the corporate world and I'm going to be a yogi, like I want to at least still be successful financially. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, probably it just occurred to me that opening a studio was like the ultimate end goal. But then I guess as I started going deeper into yoga and really getting clarity on, what's true to me, what do I love? I've always loved traveling, and I thought, and I learned of other teachers who were doing this, and I decided I don't want to be in one spot at this point. I mean, probably at some point, I'd love to have like a retreat center and a healing center, a wellness center that people travel from around the world to. But really at that point in my life, I knew that I wanted to actually live a simple life. Mm-hmm. It was up until then, it was so much about achievement and accumulating and success. And actually, when I decided to quit and get my one-way ticket to India, so I mentioned I was married at one time. So my ex-wife, Mel, we're still great friends. And so at the time we divorced, we split everything 50-50. And it was really easy, really amicable. The only thing that we disagreed upon was a wooden bowl from our wedding. It was a wedding gift. I ended up getting it. But anyways, at the time when I decided, hey, I'm going to go travel the world, I gave Mel everything, like all of my half of the material stuff, the couches and whatever. And it felt so good, actually, to be able to go and travel and just have the stuff on my back and just have my guitar and just feel alive from connecting with people. And so that's a little bit, I mean, that fits my personality. I'm a little bit extreme. So I go from one extreme to the other. And now my practice has really been about finding balance. But there was, I guess, a time there. I got clear on who I am and what I want to do. And that's what I went after.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think that's really amazing. I think that sometimes, when we get clear on kind of what we want, it scares us a lot. Was there any point when you were like, this is really terrifying to like quit this good job and buy a one-way ticket to India? Or were you just like so dead set on like, this is the right path for me?
I was so certain. There was no fear the whole time. Actually, I would say when I was still in the corporate world and teaching like one class a week at Breathe Hot Yoga down in Calgary, mm-hmm. There was like no worries about my teaching because it's like, I'm just kind of doing it once a week. It's on the side. Like there's no stress. When I started teaching full time, I definitely started putting more pressure on myself as a teacher because it's like, whoa, like this is what I do now. This is how I make a living. So it is accurate to say that I like put pressure on myself as a teacher. But from the standpoint of, am I doing the right thing? I mean, there's been no looking back. And I would say things to my parents and family and friends who are a little bit concerned. I would say things like, hey, I've got an education, I've got work experience I can always fall back on. But I knew, like every cell in my body knows that this is true to me. This is what I love. This is what makes me feel alive. Mm-hmm. We were just leading yoga teacher training here in Canada last weekend. We will again this weekend, and there's no other way I'd rather spend my weekends. Forget about, staying up all night and sleeping in, being all hungover and eating like crap. Like I want to have real conversations with people and get clear, like what is holding them back? What is their limiting beliefs? And how can we break through that and transform that and really inspiring people to create their dream life? Like that's what, to me, that's the opportunity we have. And I'm committed to taking it, and we just love to share that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that that's so amazing that you guys are doing that. Can you take me through this trip that you went on? So you book a one-way ticket to India and you're like, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to travel, and I'm going to teach yoga.
Totally. Yeah. So I didn't really know, like I got my one-way ticket to India. I didn't even book a place to stay when we landed. Like I was just like, I went with my buddy Steve though. So it was me and him. And, but we just were totally going with the flow. Like within a few days, we actually ended up on a flight and we went up to Kashmir into the mountains, and it was snowing, and but we really just went with the flow the whole time. And that was probably one of the most stress-free periods of my life. To be honest, now that I'm back and I'm really creating a thriving yoga business, it's like, perfectly honest, like the stress comes back, right? Because mm-hmm. now it's like I'm growing and expanding and achieving and really committed to make a difference and stepping out of my comfort zone. So with that comes a natural form of stress. At this time, like it was literally just going with the flow and trusting and really getting clarity on what I wanted to do. I mean, there was a period there where Steve, he was envious. He's like, man, you've got it all figured out. Like, you're going to teach yoga, you're going to play music, you're really great at it. And he's like, I don't know what I want to do. He just quit his corporate job as well. He's an accountant from Saskatoon. And he's like, I don't know what I want to do. And we had so many great conversations. And I was like, Steve, that's the whole point, man. Like, it's like you're 30 years old at the time. And I said, like, take the time now, try stuff, figure it out. I mean, it would be boring if anybody, somebody came up to you, Amanda, and said, listen, this is what you're going to do for a living. This is where you're going to live. This is who you're going to marry. This is how many kids you're going to have. I mean, nobody wants to be told all of that. Like, the whole fun is discovering it. And so I would say that period of backpacking around India and in Thailand and some other areas, it was just really about going with the flow and listening to what was true for me.
Yeah, I love that. And how did you get teaching gigs while you were abroad?
During that trip, because it wasn't about making money, it was really just about experiencing and connecting with people. So like literally anywhere we went, we teach on the beach. I was teaching at orphanages in Bali, any studios, like just doing it from place of, I love to do this. I mean, anybody that says you don't have opportunities or there's oversaturated, too many yoga teachers, I don't buy it. I mean, you could teach anywhere, like in a park, you could teach at a stoplight. Like when you love yoga and you can share it anywhere. And when you do it with passion and conviction and inspiration, people are going to want to be a part of that. So yeah, really at that time, it's just anywhere we had a chance. And though while I was there, I really started doing the thinking and the brainstorming of what do we want to create? Like how do I want to create my life? So I started, drafting up workshops and all these kind of things and retreats. And literally as soon as I got back from India, I started putting on my first yoga retreats down in Mexico and just like exploded from there.
Yeah, that's so amazing to hear. You're making me, it's funny because I've been nomadic for a couple of years now and I work and travel, which is a really sustainable way in order to be able to continue traveling. But it's making me kind of, crave the days of like not having any responsibilities and really being able to go deep with what you desire. And it's something that I would encourage like everyone to go and do. Just like not having anything to worry about really allows you to kind of figure out what you want to spend your time doing.
Yeah, I mean, just taking that time and I mean, ideally, like, what you and I have done, ideally, yes, if you can, leave everything behind and go to the other side of the world and let go, that's amazing. And though, if that's not possible, if that's not feasible, like if someone's listening to this podcast and they're like, yeah, easy for you guys to say, you don't have kids or you don't have, this responsibility or childcare payments or, whatever, we always have reasons. I believe there's still ways to incorporate that lifestyle into our day-to-day life. Like we have to take the time, like no matter how much, like I'm more driven now than I was in the corporate world. Like, I mean, I just, because I'm so passionate about this. So really my balance, it's like making the time each day to do my meditation, to do my yoga practice, to get out and have a meaningful conversation with a friend, to, whatever it is, get out into nature, even if it's short little retreats, and of course, if it's possible, joining us or joining wherever for a yoga retreat in Mexico or Bali or India. But you're absolutely right. Like taking that time for yourself, especially the single mom, especially the person, if you don't have time, like there's that saying, everybody needs to meditate 20 minutes a day, unless you don't have time. If you don't have time, then you need to meditate an hour a day. Like we need this.
Yeah, I know. I love that. And I'm glad that you brought up too, not everybody can just dump all their stuff and sell all their stuff and quit their jobs and that sort of thing. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, I know I lived in Atlanta for a year and it's a gigantic city. And one of the things that I did quite regularly was go on a hike by myself. And it's amazing there because, when you're in Canmore, you've got to worry about mountain lions and bears attacking. It's not really safe to go by yourself, but in Atlanta, it's totally safe to hike by yourself. I just found like being outside in nature for an hour in my workday just totally brought me to a different mental space where I could get sort of that clarity that I was able to get when I was traveling. So I love the idea of incorporating that into your day to day.
Exactly. It's finding the practices that work for you. I mean, some people, like Krishna Das, his practice is kirtan, right? Getting on his harmonium and just chanting his mantras. And so for us, whether that's music or meditation or nature, it's finding the things that give us that inner peace. And, I will also say, like with our style of yoga, Happy Jack Yoga, I mean, we've really combined, the best that I've experienced in the West, but also having lived in India now on several occasions, bringing the practices from the East. And I think it's really important to find the balance. So we just got back from India last week. Mm-hmm. And when we're there, it's very internal. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's an opportunity to like go internal and meditate and slow down. I need that. And though I think that there's such an opportunity, or I've experienced, there's such an opportunity for connection, right? We're getting so disconnected, as amazing as technology is, right? But we're getting so disconnected. Everybody's just on their iPhone. So for me, it's like in our style of yoga, it's not about closing our eyes and going internal, or, at times it is, but it's also about opening our eyes and waking up and connecting with people and, really feeling alive. So I think it's really important to find the balance of both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to get your thoughts and maybe opinions and even some tips if you have them for people who are, maybe building their businesses online or want to have this online presence, but also want to be really present in their day-to-day life and, specifically present with your students. And I think, there's a big thing around, like I worked for a yoga studio in Atlanta a couple of years ago where they were talking about no phones for the teachers in class, like don't be checking your phone during Shavasana. And it just seems like almost this crazy thing to have to tell someone. But at the same time, like you said, we are so attached to these devices that give us, this ability to connect with the whole world. Yet when we do that, we're kind of missing this like connection that's right in front of us. How do you kind of find that balance?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's a practice. It really is. I mean, my tendency is to be a workaholic just because but I don't do things that are not serving me. I don't browse Google and I don't like watch, foolish stuff on YouTube, but, I am very driven. And so for me, I know that when I take the time in the morning, whether it's 30 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour, whatever I schedule. And that's the key, is really to schedule it. Because, if you dream about it, that's one thing. If you talk about it, but like when you actually schedule it and commit to it, that's when it happens. That's when you get the results. So I guess for me, I lay out my week. I have what I call the hour of power. Sunday evenings, sit down, look at my week. Yes, I schedule it, this podcast. Oh, okay, Thursday at 2:00. Podcast with Amanda, all the different commitments I have. And then I schedule in my practices, and I schedule in, what time does everything get shut down? 8:00 at night, so from 8 to 10, it's like I'm offline. That's when I can connect with my wife, Hanna. That's when I can connect with my family. That's when I can feed my mind, actually, grab a book, listen to an audio podcast, or, do something that's nourishing me and really have some downtime before bed. But then outside of that, there's definitely scheduled working hours because, let's be honest, I used to teach this and I was a little bit incorrect, but I used to say, hey, if you do what you love, you're going to be successful. And it's not the whole truth, because yes, if you do what you love, there's a great potential. However, you got to put the work in too. Like you can't just be like, sit at home and be like, oh, I love this. It's all going to work out. You've got to put in the time. Mm-hmm. And so as we're talking, it's really about finding the balance. But I find if I take my time in the morning, and a little bit of downtime in the evening for those practices, even though I have less hours in the day, I get more done just because I'm more present, I'm more connected, I'm more grounded, I'm happier, I'm healthier. So I would say the key is scheduling it to make it real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I've been I've been using Sunday nights as my kind of like, power hour, as you put it, which I love for a while now. And I've recently been seeing a lot of blog posts kind of pop up with like, this is one of the things that successful people do. And I think it's so key. And I started doing it because I found that Monday mornings were becoming this thing that I was kind of dreading, and it was so hectic and all over the place. And, my inbox was becoming an absolute disaster, which I hate. And I was like, what can I do to make this a lot better for myself? Because I didn't, start my own business to hate Mondays. Like that's something I did when I was in corporate. Like that's not what I want to do. I want to wake up every day and feel excited. So how can I wake up on Mondays and feel excited? And I was like, great. If I get my whole week organized and I know exactly what to expect in my inbox and what emails need to go out and what needs to happen Monday morning, then it's not so stressful. I can make a matcha and I'm good to go. So yeah, I love that.
Totally. And I think it's finding those practices that are going to nourish you and light you up. Like I mentioned, I mean, I am in all honesty, like there is more stress in my life today than there was, back in the corporate world. Not because I love my life. I mean, I love the lifestyle I've created, but I'm really challenging myself and stepping out of my comfort zone. And because it's no longer just about me and my personal success. It's about like you mentioned, Jenna's on our team. We got a team of 7 and that's growing. And we got over 100 yoga teachers from a dozen countries around the world, certified in Happy Jack Yoga, who are out there that we're supporting in our mastermind groups. And so I'm extending myself and giving so much. And so there's more than ever, is the need to have those practices. And so, I mean, one of the ones for me is in the morning, what we call the incantation. And literally looking into the mirror, it's like an affirmation, but really using your whole physiology. And I got this from Tony Robbins. Actually, the past year and a half, I've become buddies with Tony Robbins, recorded a bunch of yoga podcasts for his personal trainer and their app. And just through that friendship and that partnership we have, being able to bring in, obviously he's the world's leader in psychology and breakthroughs and transformation, and being able to bring in those techniques, those tools into the yoga world. And that's one of the things I do first thing in the morning is an incantation, look myself in the eye, because I do wake up and I already feel overwhelmed. It's like, man, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And it's about getting myself in state and really getting clear on what is my outcome? What do I need to create? What am I committed to doing? What are the daily practices that I'm committed to that are going to nourish me? And really, it's a balance. It's a practice. And I love it.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Do you switch your incantation up, or do you do kind of the same thing every day?
I have a few. I mean, I do switch it up, and because actually it's part of their sequence, the Happy Jack Yoga sequence that we share at trainings. Incantation is part of it, and so we have several different ones that we draw on, and there's different ones though that definitely I love each day.
Amazing. I love that. And I feel like you've touched on, kind of a lot of this already, but I'm curious if there's anything else that you do, because I think that it's really common in the yoga world for yoga teachers and yoga studio owners and yoga business owners to feel this sort of stress. And it's like, well, I'm a yoga teacher now, I should be Zen all the time. And I think that it's always stressful when you own your own business and you're responsible for paying other people and you're responsible, for your own income and making sure that your water bill is paid and that sort of thing. So you mentioned your incantations and your regular practice and your shut off hour and your power hour on Sundays. Is there anything else you do to kind of manage your schedule and prevent burnout?
Man, it's such a great question. I mean, there's definitely other practices I do, like pranayama breathing techniques and some of the mantra that I've learned in India. I would say just the first thing that comes to mind is, for me, relationships are so key. And so for those of you in a relationship, maybe not the case to all the listeners, but myself, I'm married. And what I've seen is that if there's a disconnection or some conflict or some, reason that's causing distance between Hannah and I, my wife, that shows up in every area of my life. So it's not by putting in more time and more energy and more work and sending more emails is not going to move things forward nearly as powerfully as, is having the conversation, if there's an elephant in the room or whatever needs to be said. And we've had a little bit of challenges just the past couple of weeks, just minor stuff. And it wasn't until just such a powerful conversation yesterday, that we that things really came back together. And what we've discovered recently, it's like when we came together in our relationship, she was already a single mom. So she lost her husband 10 years ago. And so she's got 2 teenage boys. So clearly her first priority is her kids. Naturally, it makes sense. For me, I came into the relationship and my first priority is Happy Jack Yoga, right? That's been my mission for the last 8 years or so. Mm-hmm. And so it's about, and what we got though, is that if I put the mission ahead of Hanna, and if she puts the kids ahead of me, it doesn't work. It doesn't feel right. It's like we discovered we have to put each other first. Like literally, she has to be my first priority. I have to be her first priority. And it doesn't mean we neglect Happy Jack Yoga. It doesn't mean we neglect the kids, but really having that connection. So I mean, that's been something really important for us. Mm-hmm. And then I guess, when we have that understanding, when we're in a good space, I mean, I don't feel guilty from doing a bit of extra work, or, we don't feel guilty. We feel united. And that's what yoga is all about, right? Yoga is union. And, that's been a big one for us.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. And it makes me think about how sometimes I think we kind of segment the different things in our life. Like, this is like my personal life and this is my work life and these are the friends I have. And, this is my relationship with my parents and this is, my diet and exercise. And I think that, in reality, it's all connected. Like if you're not eating well, then you're probably not as productive with work. And if you've got, something that's really, kind of disrupting your mental space with your parents, your family, your partner, your kids, anything like that, it's going to seep into all these other aspects of your life. And it's like you kind of need to get clear with all of that stuff to have it all in alignment.
It is, absolutely. And I find when you can be open about it and not have to suppress things or hide things, it was actually my second yoga teacher training that I did very soon after my first. And this one was in Austin, Texas. And it was another 7-day training. And it was about halfway through the training. It was a Wednesday night at 10 o'clock at night. And our teacher, he's like, everybody get on your mats. We're going to practice. And we're like, holy shit, it's 10 o'clock at night. Isn't it bedtime? Anyways, we get on our mats. We did a 2-hour practice of all hip openers, like super deep. And, 25-minute long frog. It was crazy intense.
Oh my gosh.
That was midnight. Yeah, totally. So that was midnight. And our teacher is like, okay, everybody find a partner, someone who you haven't had a chance to get to know yet, and sit up close, face to face. And then the lights went off. So here we are. So the lights go out and our teacher says, you have 10 minutes each to share your deepest, darkest secrets. And we're like, wow, we didn't expect this, but it's a safe environment, right? It's a teacher training. It's confidential. We just did like 2 hours of hip opening. So we're very open. And I team up with this girl, Carrie from Seattle. And I didn't know her then, but we've since become really great friends. And so I'm like, wow, okay, deepest, darkest secrets. Well, I was an alcoholic for 15 years. I was out of control. Really totally out of control. And I've been sober now for 8 years. So I'm really proud of that. Another thing was I was abusing a lot of stupid drugs like crystal meth and crack cocaine, all this ridiculous stuff. And of course I'm sober from that. And the third thing that came up was that, I cheated on my wife, not something that I'm proud of, definitely not the person who I am today. And yet that's something that I did. Mm-hmm. And yet, so those 3 things I was very aware of, but I certainly wouldn't share them openly to others. And then yet in that moment, something else that came up was that when I was 16, I'd had a sexual experience with another guy. And I completely suppressed that. Like I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, and it came up and I shared it. And then anyways, then after that, Carrie shared back her deepest, darkest secrets. And then we go into a noble silence. So literally for the rest of the night, we couldn't talk to the other participants. So I go back to my bunk. I'm laying in my bunk bed, staring up at the ceiling. All this stuff just came up and, I couldn't share it. The next morning we're eating our breakfast in silence. And of course, eventually we could talk. And that was the most freeing experience of my life. I mean, really to be able to accept myself for who I am, to not be ashamed of things from the past. And so for me, that's been a really big component of this practice. Yes, there's the meditation. Yes, there's the physical practice, but there's really the self-inquiry and going deep and learning to accept ourselves and release anything from the past that's not serving us. So it's been huge for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's really important. And thanks for sharing that as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, you said that you got back from your trip and you'd kind of been, diving into some ideas around what you wanted to do with your business. And then you held a retreat in Mexico and it's kind of taken off from there. Can you go into a little bit more detail with, getting this first retreat organized and take me kind of from this first retreat to where you're at now, which is offering trainings all over the world that are, quite successful?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, it started doing it because I loved it. And starting to create like just a small community of students who loved what I did. And I just saw it as like leading a yoga retreat in Mexico on the beach would be like, that would be the dream. Forget about moving back to snowy Canada and opening a yoga studio. I want to be on the beach in Mexico and lead retreats. And so I was committed to it. I was obsessed about it. And so everywhere I taught, I would let students know, the one thing I do everywhere I travel, I give people, I have a gift for students, and I exchange if you want to share your email address, I've got a fantastic gift for you, just to keep them in the community, and I could share all of my teachings and everything I'm learning. And then when the time came to do the retreat, I reached out to everybody I'd literally met along my journeys. And actually I did 2 retreats, like back to back, week after week. And they were great. Like they were really successful. Mm-hmm. And I would say from there, just the relationships. So I've done over 3,000 hours of teacher trainings and so much personal development. So it's all about the relationships and the connections I have, people I've met at other programs. So now that's how I've been able to travel to 30 plus countries and teaching around the world, is just these people who I've met. They're so happy to hey, Jack, come to our studio, you can crash on our couch and, teach a workshop or whatever. So it really started out simple like that. And then the more I learned, the more that I knew this is what I wanted to do, the more I recognized longer programs, 3-hour workshop and then week-long retreat. I was like, we got to do teacher trainings, because that's when you have you really have the time to work with people and break through limiting beliefs and break through patterns not serving them and share everything you have to offer. So it's really, patience has been key, because it doesn't just happen overnight. But I would say if you're passionate about it and you love it and you go for it, it's just just keep going for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Has there been anything that's been different now that, you're into leading trainings around the world and you guys travel quite a bit? Has there been anything that's been different about that you kind of had hoped for or maybe expected going into that?
Let's see. That's a great question. Is there something that's different that I'd hoped for? I don't know. I think that I feel that every experience, everything happens really for a reason. And so some programs that you could say I expected would be a knockout, a success, a home run, it would sell out, and then they wouldn't, for whatever reason. And then other programs that I didn't have that high expectations for, and then they'd sell out in really quickly. So I think what I've learned, it's not about providing what I want or what I think is great. It's about really understanding our customers, our clients, our students, and knowing what do they want. Mm-hmm. And so it being more of a conversation, not just, hey, I love essential oils, so I'm going to do a workshop on essential oils. Maybe that's your thing. That's not mine, but maybe that's your thing. It's what do the students want? And it's something I've just discovered really recently, rather than providing, it's because everybody uses these buzzwords, transformation, breakthrough, inspiration. But people don't go onto Google and search, I want to take my yoga practice to the next level. People go on Google and search, I have back pain. I can't, I'm not flexible, or I'm stressed out. And so it's learning to not just oh, hey, let's go to the beaches and do yoga on the beach, but really, how can we support people? How can we provide a solution that's going to, give people more ease, give people less stress, allow people to be happier? And so I think, really, it's just a marketing thing. And either way, we always provide an extraordinary service, but it's just learning how to communicate that and really understand what are people looking for, not just giving what we think people need.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's been, an interesting journey for me on my yoga business path, is kind of figuring out what do people need in the industry, and specifically what are they willing to pay for? Because I think there's a difference between what people are interested in as a free offering or something that they'll, give their email address for an ebook for or something like that, versus what they're actually willing to put their credit card down for. I'm curious, outside of, having the conversations when you've got somebody on retreat about what they're looking for, what else do you do to kind of connect with your customers and find out what they want?
Yeah, well, certainly, like you say, on retreat, I always have a one-on-one session with everybody who joins, just because we're so committed to everybody having such an extraordinary experience. So, like you say, that's easy, right, once you're in person one-on-one. Outside of that, through our newsletter, we got thousands of people on the newsletter database, and sometimes we'll pose questions out there, certainly in social media, engaging people. For us, because we've been doing this so many years and we have so many teachers and, over 100 teachers in dozens of countries around the world, we really in communication with them. Because actually I found, 4 years ago or whatever, when we started doing teacher trainings, we would just graduate the teacher trainings and it would be amazing, send them off. And then it's like, they just go figure it out on their own. And now we have this mastermind community where we're together on a monthly basis. We're on a video call on a weekly basis. We're connecting and sharing more content with all our graduated teachers so that they can, to continue to empower them, because they might be in a small town in Finland or Norway or wherever they end up, and just so they still have that connection and support. And then also through those conversations, we can ask the questions, what are people looking for? Our past graduates, they're often the ones who join, this November, we're going back to Mexico, to Tulum for our life mastery retreat, which is really, it's about emotional mastery, time management mastery, relationship mastery, wealth mastery, health and well-being mastery, all the key areas of life. And so many of our graduates and, up to the 500-hour certified graduates who are joining that. So it's not always just new people. It's also the people who have, because they're the raving fans, the people who have done programs with us and they know how amazing it is and they want to come back for more. So just whenever possible, engaging in those conversations.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you touched on something really important there, talking about, thinking about bringing in new customers and how to connect with them, but also thinking about the people who have, already paid you and they already like what you offer and they've already built rapport and a connection with you. And what are those people looking for? And also having that. I think that that's, a really important piece to the business puzzle, I guess you could say.
Totally. They say that nowadays, well, back in the day, it used to take 4 interactions to get a sale. On average, person would have to see the advertisement or hear about the product, 4 times. Nowadays, because there's so much, just so much stimulation, so much going on, they say it takes 16 times before, even Jenna, Jenna is now, badass yogini. She's on our team. It wasn't until she was on my newsletter list for a year and a half, just getting the newsletter, she'd heard about me, so just started following me. And it wasn't until I sent a newsletter, I was out snowboarding with Tony Robbins in Whistler. And he brought Bill Clinton to spend the afternoon with us, and it was a really cool blog post, and had a great conversation with Bill Clinton, and then that sparked her interest. And it wasn't, and then she joined up and she did some coaching with me, and then she ended up coming to the Mexico leadership immersion. Then when she got to experience it live, then she did Bali, then India, and now she's on the team. Yeah. And so it was, she was literally on that list for a year and a half before she even decided to reach out to me. So it's, I guess, just keep communicating, keep sharing, keep really adding value. Because if we're just selling, if we're just promoting, it doesn't work, right? Your people are going to unsubscribe. It's really about educating and sharing value. And so that's really, Jenna is the director of education, one of our directors of education. And our whole mission is how can we help people? How can we educate people? How can we add more value than anybody else? And that's what we're committed to.
Yeah. I love that you used her as an example, because it's really interesting to see that sort of, the I guess the human psychology really is what it is around interacting with the product and the service. And it's like, and I feel like I've definitely been there as well, where you're on a newsletter and you're kind of like reading and your interest is piqued, but it's like you haven't taken action yet. And it's so interesting to see that point of actually taking action to be like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I want to work with you, or, you know, I'm keen to come to this retreat, or I'm keen to start training with you. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah. You know, it really is. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, it's because I don't have enough Instagram followers. I don't have enough this. I'll tell you right now. I mean, I have very few Instagram followers. Happy Jack Yoga, I think we have like 1,600. Jenna has more Instagram followers than Happy Jack Yoga. You know I have friends who literally have 100,000 Instagram followers. But I'll tell you what, there's way more people at our retreats and our teacher trainings than there is at theirs. So it's not like necessarily a direct correlation, just because, you know, and don't get me wrong. I mean, Instagram is still fantastic. It's an excellent tool and it should be utilized, but it's more than just that. It's really about how do you engage? How do you add value? How do you change lives? When you start getting testimonials, I mean, now our programs fill up from referrals. Because like people come, they literally, their life is changed, transformed. They're so lit up, and they want to share that with their sister. They want to share it with their husband. They want to share it with their family members. And that's what's actually really giving us momentum now. So much more than, you know, the early days when it was, you know, me out there trying to convince people and they're just giving them a taste. So it takes time, like really have patience, but stay committed to adding value and helping people, and you'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting. I have a private Facebook community where we talk about, you know, the business side of yoga, and I feel like Instagram comes up a lot, and some people really like it and find it quite useful, and other people are very, you know, kind of turned off by sort of the Insta yogi culture that's out there, and the, you know, perfect poses and that sort of thing. And I think there's definitely conversations to be had around that. But I think you bring up an interesting point, because to me, it's like Instagram is almost like the top of the sales funnel. Like, it's a way for people kind of to just discover the brand. But to me, it's so much less personal than being in somebody's inbox, being able to have their ear for 5 minutes as they can read through, you know, me telling them a personal story. And I would get way more personal with an email newsletter than with, you know, something I'm sharing to the entire world on Instagram, in a lot of ways. And I think it's really interesting to think about how you can, you know, engage somebody via Instagram, engage them via your newsletter, and keep them engaged via that until, you know, there's something that piques their interest enough for them to be like, yeah, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. Like, here's my credit card.
Yeah. Totally. And it's really is, I believe, about being real, sharing your whole life. Like, I mean, Yoga Girl is one person who has, you know, crushed it on Instagram.
Definitely.
I don't really follow it so much, but, you know, she's like crushed it. And what I have seen is like, she shares so much, so authentically, so real, not hiding. And I mean, that's like, I mean, things happen to us in life. You know, everybody has adversities. Everybody has challenges. I mean, just myself. I mean, 3 years ago, I moved to Finland, which is my mom's home country, and I had only been there for like 3 weeks, and I was there. I was teaching yoga, playing music, doing what I love, and I got diagnosed with cancer, and I totally didn't expect that. Like, I'm Happy Jack, I'm vegan, I'm this yogi, healthy lifestyle, and I know if that had happened to me before I found yoga, I would have had so much stress and so much fear, so much anxiety. And yet when I got that diagnosis, I actually felt gratitude. As crazy as that sounds, like I've already been through all these adversities in life with alcohol and drugs and divorce and obesity. I actually used to weigh 100 pounds more than I am today.
Wow.
You know, workaholism. So I've overcome all these adversities, and I just knew in my heart I was going to survive. I was going to be okay. And I saw it as an opportunity. And I was very fortunate. I just had cancer for 1 month before I had the tumor removed. And that 1 month was literally one of the best months of my life. I mean, I got to fly back home to Canada. I got to see my family who I hadn't seen in a while. I got to take a great course on life coaching. I met my nephew, Gus, who had just been born a week prior. You know, I had a quick surgery, and within a month I was back in Finland, teaching yoga, playing music, and doing what I love. And I know it was because of these practices, because of this lifestyle of yoga, that allowed me to enjoy that. And I share that just because that experience and other, adversities and personal challenges I've had, that's what connects me with people, and that's what connects people with their teachers. We have other teachers on our team, who have, navigated PTSD or depression or, death and loss. And it's, we don't share, it's not about like being a victim and therapy. It's not about therapy, but it's about being real and connecting with people and letting them know it's okay and they're not alone. And that's really, I would say, a big part of our success is just that authenticity and being real and creating connection with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think that it's super important to be able to be authentic with people, because I don't think it's really positive or helpful to be put on a pedestal, like to put your teachers on a pedestal or to have yourself as a teacher be put on a pedestal, because then it kind of it changes like the power dynamic a little bit within, a class or an offering. And I think it's way easier to resonate with somebody when you recognize, like, I'm just another human living another human experience. And what you're going through, you're not going through alone. Like, we're all going through things like this. And instead of feeling alone, why don't we experience this together so that we can help each other and, have a better experience with it. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, when we can, for the yoga teachers listening, when you can create your business, such that it's not about you as an individual. Like I had that challenge. Like Happy Jack Yoga initially started out as me, this, inspirational, happy yoga guy traveling the world. And then actually it was through a lot of conversations with Tony Robbins. And he's like, you've got to create a system of yoga, something like extraordinary, superior to anything else out there. Like it's not about you as an individual. It's a system. It's a transformational process. It's a lifestyle. And when we really started positioning ourselves differently and bringing on all these team members with so much more to offer, I mean, we're killing it now because it's not about an individual. It's about a community and having that community support. So that's, I mean, just through the power of numbers, we can impact so many more lives, serve so many more people. And that's now where we're seeing this exponential growth and it feels amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Were there any challenges since your brand was built around sort of like your name and your identity, making it more of like a group thing or being more inclusive with other people? Was there a big shift that had to happen there?
It not really. I mean, probably a little bit like my own personal psychology. I was like, oh, is it going to work? But everybody we talk to, everybody's like, oh my God, like Happy Jack, it's so memorable. It's such a great name. It's so catchy. It's like, I mean, like when you think of Ralph Lauren, not that I want to compare myself to that, but I don't think of a person, right? It's a brand.
Yeah.
And, it's really like Happy Jack. Yes, it's an individual. Yes, he's the founder. But it's so much bigger than that. It's like when it's creating something so much bigger than myself. And interesting though, around the name, when I first started teaching and traveling the world, my nickname. So anyway, when I was a kid, my nickname was Happy Jack, because I was so happy. I was just always smiling. My parents, they nicknamed me Happy Jack. So when I found yoga, but anyways, then when I started back up again, I was Happy Jack. I was a kid. Then I went off to school and I got teased or I got bullied and started, putting up a mask and putting up a wall and, hiding. And then when I found yoga, I really started peeling away those layers of the onion, getting back to, really being free, being happy again. So I thought, oh, this is perfect. I'll call the business Happy Jack Yoga. And that was great. And I'm traveling around the world and teaching yoga. And then I found, though, I was putting pressure on myself. I felt like, whether I showed up in Hong Kong or whether I showed up in Iceland or wherever I was, I had to be this happy, inspirational person. And what I found was way more powerful is to be real, to be authentic. Thankfully, most days I am, happy and inspirational. But, if I am having an off day, it's just about being real and not putting on a performance. So there was a period there where it's like really embracing, like, what is Happy Jack Yoga all about? And it's not about performing and, put a smile and fake it till you make it. There's really a deep-rooted sense of authenticity and realness and rawness and connection. And I don't know, so many people are resonating with it. We've got so many certified teachers out now. They're killing it. Like graduates are opening studios. graduates are, teaching online to 70 countries around the world. Some of them are on cruise ships around the Caribbean. Some of them are in the, down teaching yoga retreats. And so really, we've empowered our graduates to create thriving yoga careers. And that's what's possible through the power of community. So that's why we love this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Do you have any other, business tips or lessons that you've learned that you want to share with listeners today?
I guess, I would say it just comes back to yes, doing what you love. And, I'm really serious when I say you've got to put the time in, not rushing it, not feeling like it all has to happen today. I know that's my thing. I'll tell you, now having the proximity with Tony Robbins and, he gives me so many ideas and so many strategies. And there's this part of me that wants to get it all done right now. It's like, it's like I have this never ending to-do list. And reality is it's always going to be never ending. There's always so many things to do. So the key has been, creating a schedule, scheduling time to do my daily practice, scheduling time to do my work, and really focusing on what's priority. I don't want to just be running around putting out fires and, I got to do this, and just bouncing around from fire to fire. It's what am I really committed to creating, to achieving, to accomplishing each day, each week, and really just taking a day, a week, a month at a time, and enjoying the process.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's if we're just so attached, it's so cliche, but if we're so attached to the end destination, the whole point is the journey. I'm 37 now and been doing this for some years, but it's there's still the whole world. I've taught at all the big festivals, Wanderlust, and the big city yoga conferences, and all around Europe, and this and that. And at one point, those were my ultimate destination. And now I've been there, done that, but now there's something bigger. It's now I want to be on this stage. I want to share this. I want to impact these people. Our mission is to positively influence the lives of 1 billion beautiful souls within the decade. I'm not going to do that by myself, but that's something that lights me up. We want to help people, and it's and at the same time taking it one day at a time. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's a beautiful sunny day in Canada. And after this, I'm going to go walk our Boston Terrier Coco, get a little bit of sunshine, and then be back to work and, be rocking and rolling, doing what I love. It's really about balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's I don't know if everyone struggles with this, but I can certainly relate to what you said about I just want to do it all now. And I know I experienced that when I started traveling too. I was I just want to see it all. I'm in Europe, so I need to go to all the cities and all the countries, and I need to see all the places in Asia. And now I've kind of learned with business and life to slow down a little bit, going to keep a mindset where I'm going to live a long time, and that there's going to be time to do this. And as long as I'm hustling every single day and finding that balance, everything is going to be fine. Everything's going to work out.
I love it. Yeah, that's amazing. And I love what you're doing. I mean, I think it's beautiful that you're leveraging a way to help others. It's because if we just do it, in our small town or our community, that's a beautiful thing and a noble thing. But let's not make technology wrong. I mean, it's allowing us, all the listeners literally around the world who can benefit and hear and enjoy this podcast conversation. I think it's amazing what you're doing, being able to bring this content, this educational, these, thought thinkers, these thought leaders to the masses. So I love it. I acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I mean, it's amazing too, not only can listeners listen from anywhere in the world, but it's also amazing that, we can have this conversation between Mexico and Canada, because
totally.
If I could only interview people wherever I was in the world, it would really limit the conversations that I was able to have. And, I'm certainly grateful that we're able to have this conversation and then be able to broadcast it to anyone who wants to listen. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, let's be honest, there's probably a big part of the future of the yoga business is going to be online. I mean, I look at our graduates, we got a graduate up in northern Finland now. She just graduated last year from Spain, and she's opened a studio and kicking butt and thriving. And her vision is within 5 years, she wants to have her whole yoga business online. Mm-hmm. She can be doing it from wherever she is. And, it seems like that's kind of the direction that society is heading. And, we can sit here and say, oh, that's not yoga. Yoga is all about connection and, being in the room and sweating together. And there's always going to be a place for that, but let's not miss the boat on technology and how it can allow us to serve more people. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Totally. I 100% agree with you. And I think it's, looking at the opportunities that can come. Like if you're, graduate or this yoga teacher who's up in northern Finland is able to give people who can't drive to her studio or who don't have a studio in their town the opportunity to practice yoga, like, doesn't that make the world a better place?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I always think about when people are like, it's such a shame that everything's online. And I'm like, well, there's always going to be brick and mortar businesses. There's always going to be opportunities to connect in person. So why don't we think about, the amazing things, like the fact that you and I maybe would never have had this conversation. I mean, maybe we would have, but there's a strong chance that we wouldn't have had this conversation, at least right now, if we were not able to connect online. And I'm really grateful for that. So
totally. Yeah. It's like in with any situation in life, I mean, the problems, what is wrong is always available. It's always easy to find what's wrong, what's not going right. The fantastic thing is, so is what's right. Like what's right is always available, and we get to choose what we put our attention on and what we focus on. And that's what's going to allow us to propel forward and move forward and really make a difference and be able to generate and create this success in a thriving career, a thriving lifestyle. That's what we all deserve. And it's going to take hard work. It's going to take patience. It's going to take community. It's going to take learning and training. And that's all part of the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And so if there's people out there listening who, want to connect with you, find out more about your retreats and the trainings that you guys offer at Happy Jack Yoga, where can they go to find that information?
happyjackyoga.com. Best place. And I guess on social media as well, Happy Jack Yoga. I mean, if you have a direct question you want to reach out to me, I'm welcome to, I'm happy to take emails to jack@happyjackyoga.com. If you're interested in that business plan for opening a yoga studio, I'm always happy to share that. Just anybody who wants to reach out and learn more about our programs. So we literally do them around the world, retreats, 75 hours, 200 hours, 300 hour, mastermind summits. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so happy. I hope that for those listening, you got some value just from listening, just from learning. And if that's part of your journey now, then just the learning through online, that's perfect. And if you feel inspired to step into the environment, into the ring and really dive deep into this work, we'd love to welcome you to a program.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been such an awesome conversation. I feel like I could talk to you all afternoon.
I know. It's been so much fun. I appreciate you taking the time. And it's amazing that our director of education, Jenna, got us connected through technology, through Instagram.
Yeah.
So let's be grateful for that. And yeah, thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you. So there's the episode with Jack Boken from Happy Jack Yoga. Make sure you go check them out on social media as well as on their website. Maybe there's a training or a retreat that you're interested in. I know I'm certainly going to be looking into that myself. Thank you so much to Jack for coming on the podcast today. And thank you so much to our sponsors, Ceteris and Fave Yogis. As always, you can find links and all that good stuff up on the show notes at www.mbomyoga.com. You can also find the link to the newsletter, links to social media, and all of that sort of thing. You can find me on social at Mastering the Business of Yoga or join the private Facebook community at Yoga Business Bootcamp. As always, thank you so much for listening and namaste. I'll see you next week.